Um, Welcome to my areas. Hi, my name is Sarah Knudtson, and I'm here to talk to you today about making some artwork. It is inspired by the show I currently have up at Resource Depot in West Palm Beach, Florida. I'm a teaching artist in South Florida, where I grew up. I've lived some other places, but I wound up back in my hometown. So here I am. The work that I'm about to show you has a lot to do with almost like time travel, but ways to communicate with the future. I used to make a lot of artwork that was about communicating with the past, but got more interested in communicating with the future. So let's talk about it, and I'm going to show you guys some ways that you can make, well, at least one way to make a piece of art that will communicate with the future too. So let's get started. What we're going to do today is make a time capsule. So the objective of talking to you today is to think about what we throw in the trash and how long it lasts. And our task for the day is going to be to make a time capsule to include in a bag of trash. Materials, if you want to make one at home, are paper, so something to write or draw on, a toilet paper roll, or any repurposed container that you don't mind throwing away. Some pencils or crayons or markers or stickers or whatever you want to decorate your time capsule. And optional, if you want to share with what you made on Instagram. So if you're doing this as a classroom activity, our enduring understanding is really thinking about the way that people create and interact with objects, places, and design that define, shape, or enhance and empower our lives. And we're really going to be taking objects that already exist and repurposing them into something new. So in this project, you're going to think about what goes into a landfill and how long it lasts. And then you're going to create a letter to the future and let them know about you and your life. And it's based on me, my artwork. All right. So the first thing I like to think about when doing this project is, what do you think happens to trash when you throw it away? Do you think that it gets composted? And composting means that things that are biodegradable get turned back into dirt or turned back into things that we can grow new things out of, like it disintegrates and becomes usable. Or do you think everything gets recycled and made into something new, so that if you throw away a water bottle or a milk jug, that it gets cut up into teeny pieces and that it gets reformed into something new? A lot of people think that. But the truth is that landfills, which are the big dumps that we use here in America, aren't meant to biodegrade things. They're actually meant to store things. And that inside landfills, it's anaerobic, meaning that there's not a lot of air that gets in there because we seal it with sheets of plastic on the bottom and at the top, and then we plant dirt on them. And that really, when I learned that, I started to think about how landfills aren't that much different than a museum or a library, that they're areas where we store things. And that made me start to think about the idea, hey everybody, this is my cat. His name is Roland, and he's here to help me tell you about landfills. Because he's also done this project, which is, like I was saying, you could think about landfills as like a library or a museum. And one way that I used to, and a lot of people used to think about libraries or museums, is windows to the past. But then I started to flip that and reverse it, and to think about how libraries and museums aren't just windows to the past, but they store artists or writers' letters to the future. That it's a way of communicating with something that will happen 100, 1,000 years from now. So it's not just being able to look into the past, but it's a way to send your ideas into the future, which really made me think differently about landfills. So here's some of the artwork that I've made thinking about the future. Another thing to think about, so this piece up here is called planned obsolescence. That means that obsolescence is the idea that something is no longer useful because like it's old or it doesn't work anymore. And the idea that something is planned to be unuseful in the future maybe isn't the best idea. But it's the first piece that I made after thinking about the idea that a landfill is meant to store something. So I made a teeny tiny landfill and kept it in a very special box. So the idea that you could use a landfill as a means of storing something that was important. That teeny tiny landfill actually held a copper penny. Actually, it held a zinc penny that was made from recycled cars. Because the first zinc pennies were actually made from recycled cars that were post-consumer waste, meaning that they were cars that were no good anymore and they were obsolescent, they were obsolete. And then they got squished up and recycled, and some of the zinc from the chrome and other things on those big, shiny mid-century cars got made into pennies. Those cars did not cost pennies. And so another thing that I had done, and before I even made that, was I had made these maps. And these are the maps that are up at Resource Depot right now. And they are from an atlas or a grouping of maps that Palm Beach County had made of the whole county. And what I did was I looked at data that different scientists had put out into the world about different ways that climate change was going to affect where we live. And so I started making maps that weren't for now, but for the future if these things happened. And that was the first time I started really thinking about the future, thinking about not making something that's good for right now, but making something that was for 100 years from now, 20 years from now, 50 years from now, 1,000 years from now. What does that look like? And then when I kind of started thinking about those two ideas together is when I came up with Every Bag Is, which is the project that you're going to be making work inspired by. And Every Bag Is a project in which I write letters to future archaeologists that will be digging through our landfills. Now you're like, Sarah, no one's going to dig through our landfills. That's gross. Is it though? I mean, it is gross. I get you. The garbage is kind of smelly and gross, which is why we like to put it away and not think about it anymore. It's just easier for us that way. If we don't have to look at gross things, if they're out of sight, out of mind. But if we think about kind of the history of archaeology, a lot of things that end up in museums were in middens, which are old-timey dumps, or dumps, which was before landfills when people just kind of put things in one place and said, this is garbage now, and this will be our big pile of garbage. So oftentimes we find out lots about ancient or more recent cultures even through their garbage. And there are people whose whole job is to be kind of garbage archaeologists. And I'll have links to those things like this great book, Garbology, and some other books and things that you can read at the end of this or down below on this webpage. So this is a piece that I made called Every Bag Is. And in it, I have a letter that's kind of like a form letter that I have. And on the letter, it says who I am and where I live. And then I have the date that I threw away the bag of garbage. I have the location. I have how I threw it away. Like I live in a community that has a communal dumpster. So every time I throw away my garbage, I put it into this dumpster. And then I put any information that I think is important. So maybe it's garbage from my cats. Maybe it's my litter box garbage. So it's Roland's garbage. So I put down that I have 2 cats and Roland is one of them and what it is. And then I document that and I throw it away so that if 100 years from now, if someone's going through our landfills to try to find out more about us or 1,000 years from now, someone's going through our landfills trying to find out more about our civilization, that they have a clue about who I was and what kind of place this garbage was thrown away. I kind of think of it as a time capsule. So you're probably asking yourself, what is a time capsule? Well, a time capsule is a container that holds items to be opened in the future. And the best part about time capsules is that anyone can make them. They can be very small. There are time capsules that are teeny tiny, and there are time capsules that are whole rooms. The earliest known time capsule actually in the United States is from 1795, and it lives in Massachusetts, or it's stored in Massachusetts, and it was buried actually by Samuel Adams and Paul Revere. You know, usually I would say time capsules are about the size of a lunchbox, and they contain things like photographs or what used to be called newspapers, but you could put in a USB stick or a letter or a thumb drive filled with music, right? Anything that you want to capture what's going on right now that you want to tell the future. So one thing to think about when making a time capsule is, what do you want to put into the time capsules? And what's happening right now that you think should be remembered? And that can be a personal thing or a global thing. So in this project, you're going to create art that is a letter to the future and turn your next bag of trash into a time capsule. So I like to think of every bag of garbage I throw away in my house as a time capsule. And it really makes me think about, what am I throwing away? How much garbage am I throwing away? And it also makes me think about, if the garbage isn't becoming soil, if it's not being broken down, if it's just being stored, what does that look like? And does it need to be stored? And is there a way for me to use less things so that years from now, people don't have to worry about storing my garbage? Because if it's not important enough for me to keep in my house, is it important enough for anyone to keep? Then once we've made it, it's here. So we have to think about, so it makes me think about maybe getting away with less, using less, or needing less. But right now, we're going to make our time capsules. So the first thing that I'd like you to do is to get either a toilet paper roll or a paper towel roll or anything you want, or even if you just want to take a piece of paper and roll it up at the end of this. But we're going to decorate it. So on the outside of the one that I've made, I wrote the words time capsule and I drew a little clock. I have the date that I made it and where I was, and I decorated it with some crayons and some markers and some stickers that I had. And you can decorate it however you want. And then the next step is to write the letter to the future scientist or archaeologist who might find your time capsule, what it is that you want them to know. So on a piece of paper, either write or draw a letter to the future. Let them know who you are. Let them know what was in your garbage. I drew a picture of all the people who threw things away in the bag. So there's me, there's my partner, Steve. There are my two cats, Roland and Meep. And then I wrote, congratulations, you have found my time capsule. I put it in the trash in the year 2020, hoping that future scientists would find it. My name is Sarah, and I am 43 years old. All the trash in this bag with this letter came from my house. Because there's a difference between trash that comes from a house or a business or a hospital. All of those things are different. So letting people know where the trash came from would be important. So once you finish decorating it and making your letter, all you have to do is roll it up, put it in your time capsule, and throw it away. And then really you could think about it going into the great big museum of the dump or landfill. As a bonus, if you want to become part of my project, photograph your tube, photograph your letter, photograph it, being thrown away in the garbage truck, being thrown away in a dumpster. And you can share it with me on Instagram at everybagisr or with the hashtag everybagisr, and I will add it to the project that I am working on. So I hope that this project I hope you had fun. And I hope it made you think about what goes into your garbage, and how long you want things in your garbage to be stored for. You know, every piece of plastic that ever has been manufactured is still here. There are archaeologists whose whole job is to go through our garbage, and they have found packs of hot dogs from the 1960s that were completely and utterly preserved, like they were thrown away yesterday in the bottoms of landfills. Thinking about the idea of landfills as a place where things get broken down is not a viable way of thinking. It makes it easier to think that way, but it's not necessarily true. So I hope that this project made you think. I hope that you had some fun. And I hope that you are making lots of art and staying safe. So thanks so much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you guys all later. Bye.